This week in landscaping, September 29th. You may not be watching this for a couple of days, but we're in this weird little in-between zone when it comes to weather and landscaping right now, where the weather is changing. We've got nights in the 60s, but you're not really seeing the changes yet in the plants and turf. And the reason for that mainly is because they're changing their processes internally, things that we can't see, but also we haven't really gotten a bunch of rain. So we get one big rain, or you really kick on your sprinklers for an extra time, or like run it extra long for one time, and you're going to start to see things change in your landscape. So what will change? First of all, grass is going to start really kicking in again. Days in the low 90s, upper 80s, with nights in the 60s is actually really, really good from a grass growing weather perspective, especially if you can get enough water on them. Which, by the way, October is historically a really good month for rain, so we'll see if that holds up. But it's a lot better than September. September is almost always a really hard month from a rain perspective. I don't know why that is. I'm kind of curious what happens, why that's the case. But so turf will be recovering, growing, and so since we're thinking ahead before the things in the landscape really start changing, I want to talk about top dressing, which is what I'm going to be writing about, sending to all the customers and stuff this week, is some writing about top dressing and aeration. So when you top dress, first of all, you can top dress in two different times of year, mainly. And one of those is the spring, and that's the most obvious and the one most people think about. But the other one is the fall. And the spring window is pretty large, a couple months, 2 or 3 months wide that you can apply it. In the fall, it's a much tighter window. And the reason it's a tighter window is because you have to put the top dressing down when the grass is growing vigorously and still has a bit of runway to grow. And what I mean by that is, if you put down, like right now, if we were to put top dressing on right now, September 29th, for some yards that would be okay because they've been watering a bunch, and so the grass is really growing. But for a lot of yards, if you've just been watering a normal amount or haven't been watering, the grass is still pretty dormant. And so if you were to apply top dressing right now, what would happen is it would probably stifle the grass that you have. But if you apply it too late, the grass goes back into dormancy for the winter before it's really grown through that top dressing, and that can cause a problem, because then you end up with kind of a muddy mess for the rest of the winter. So you really have to nail the timing there. And what we typically think about is that like first week of October, assuming you get a big rain. So maybe a week and a half from now is kind of what I would be thinking. And again, it kind of depends on the yard and the microclimate of that yard and whatnot. But why do we do this thing? I was talking about kind of the bad stuff of it, but there's so much good for it. So just like anything in life, most of the good that comes in your turf, like why it's healthy, is done under or behind the scenes, underground. It's the root development, it's the quality of the soil, it's the nutrients in the soil. And so what top dressing does is it really supplements and improves the soil in a way that helps serve the grass in a way that's really good. So that's the first thing. I also mentioned aeration. I'll come back to that one more time. One last thing I'd say on top dressing is you really need to choose a high quality, nutrient dense soil. You don't want to be putting down just pure compost, because that can really juice the grass for a short term, but it won't really supplement the quality of the soil over the long term. It'll just like rip through all that nutrients really fast, and then it's like a really nutrient dense drink, not a long term healthy food, if you will. So make sure you got good soil that's got a lot of nutrients, but it's actually soil, not pure compost. It's like a mixture of the two. When it comes to aeration, there's really two different things we call aeration. or the community calls aeration, and I want to kind of clear that up a little bit. So there's one is mechanical aeration, which is what we do, and one is like liquid aeration, which a lot of other companies do. We do mechanical aeration because it's actually, like, it makes sense. You put holes in the ground and it allows air into the soil and decompacts the soil. Period. That makes sense. Like, we all can understand that. Now you may ask, like, why do we want air in the soil? Because the air carries a lot of important things like nitrogen to the root base, which is really good for how the grass feeds itself nutrient-wise. So it's kind of crazy that the grass can pull nitrogen from the air, but plants are crazy and impressive. So putting holes in the ground allows for those kinds of things to happen. That is good. Now, that is just kind of a difficult process, and it takes a special tool, and it's a big, bulky tool and a specialized team. And so a lot of companies have gone around to this thing called liquid aeration. Liquid aeration is basically applying a special chemical mixture that does allow certain parts of the air to be absorbed into the soil. So I'm not saying it's bad. It is a good thing for the soil. It can be a very effective thing. Sorry about those. It can be a really effective thing, but it's not decompacting the soil, which we have a tremendous amount of problems with here in town because of our soil quality. And it's not letting the actual air, the natural process, apply to the soil. So if I'm getting one done to my yard, I'm doing mechanical aeration, even though it's a little bit more difficult to do because it's actually creating a physical change on the soil and helping decompact it, especially in my situation with all my kids, because they're little compaction machines running around with their fat little feet. So I talked a bit about top dressing, talked a bit about aeration. This is the season to be preparing for that and planning for that. If you're a DIYer or you want someone else to do it for you, we're 10 days out from the perfect window. Again, maybe your yard's ready because you've been watering. Maybe it won't be ready for 14, 15 days, but we've got the window coming up here and it's a really, really good time for it. Man, it felt great outside this morning. 65 or whatever it was. Almost put on a sweatshirt, but hope you guys are doing great this week in landscaping.